Hey guys, how are we doing? Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Saturday, January the 11th, 2025, and it's going to be a warm one here in the Macedon Ranges, here in Victoria, Australia. What a place to be. Just absolutely beautiful. And I think it's going to be mid-30s today, which is probably not as hot as it's going to be around a lot of parts of Australia, but for here in the Macedon Range, it is going to be very, very warm. And Neil's back from his little adventure. Just forgive me if I'm not actually walking here, guys. I'm just taking a little bit of a break with Neil. The sun's out, and he's just found a little bit of a water bowl with some water in it at the local footy ground. So he's happy. He's had a bit of a drink, but he's not real keen on walking at the moment. He's going to have a little bit of a lie down. So that's cool. It's good rather than being out in the sun anyway. But yeah, so he's fresh off his little adventure from a couple of days ago. Thanks for everyone's comments about that little bugger. I actually just had a lady stop me. I was just walking down the road and a lady in her car stopped, and I thought, what's this lady want? She said, "Oh, I'm just so glad you found Neil. I saw the post on Facebook and I see he's out walking every morning and I hope he's okay." And I was, yeah, he's okay, little shit. But it's good to have the concern around the neighbourhood. So. But yeah, no, he's just lapping up little celebrity life. But yeah, again, thanks to everyone with the concerns and comments and that sort of stuff. He's a good little fella, but I just don't think sometimes he realises how good he's sort of got it. I know it's sort of in the nature to get out and explore. He has been obviously fixed, that's what they call it these days, fixed up. So it's not like he's out there chasing little or the women out there or the little bitches out there. But yeah, it's a little bit frustrating when he tries to get out. But anyway, on to the boxing, and the fallout is still sort of happening as far as the Jaya Pataya, David Nyika fight. Everyone's had their opinions, including me, of course, and it's been interesting reading all the feedback from everyone else. And one thing I did see that I hadn't seen before during fight week with Eddie Hearn, he's done a lot of interviews. I've probably seen him on stage or whatever 4 or 5 times during fight week, as well as all the interviews that he did. And he rolled out the standard lines of we're going to push into Australia, and we love the Australian market, and there's so much talent here, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, which was great. I think it's fantastic, and I really hope he follows through with it, because if he does, we're going to see something here that I don't think we've ever seen before as far as the magnitude of fights and the volume of fights. But he did have a different perspective about how, I can't even remember who he was speaking to. I just read it online, and he was saying just how difficult the Australian market has been and will be going forward. Now, he's only done the one other event before this, which was the Brock Jarvis Liam Paro fight, and this one as well. Obviously, it was the Mick Francis Tasman Fighters event, but he is doing the George Kambosos fight. I think it's March 22nd, I think it was, and from all accounts, I haven't had any official leaks from anyone in the know, but from what I'm sort of gathering on the rumour mill, that it is the former Canadian-German world champion, and what's his name? It escapes me now. All I was told is there was a whole country behind him. I'm not sure, but someone did say, and they did say the name. Do you think I can bloody remember him this time of the morning? But it will be announced next week. So what is it, Saturday here? So it'll be fully announced next week, and yeah, it'll all be full go from there. But what he was saying was interesting, because he said, look, and I know a little bit about this, by the way, because I did the Jeff Hearn and Michael Zarafa fight back in 2019 with Dean Lonergan, and went through the process with state governments and local governments and event committees, and you got to try and get all this funding. And it was fantastic to actually sit beside Dean Lonergan when he did this, because I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like it. This guy was the ultimate salesman and was so prepared, and obviously he went through it with Pacquiao and Hearn in Brisbane on a much bigger scale. So he had the runs on the board, but it was fascinating to sit there and with these people, and who a lot of them aren't boxing people, and you can tell they're not really into the boxing and really wanting boxing, but they also know the dollars that it brings to the state or city or whatever it might be. But Eddie was talking about the difficulties in getting funding for these events. Now, a lot of people think the money these guys make, or the money they generate, they must all be making just tens of millions of dollars. It's not exactly like that. And the logistics and the costs of putting these fights, not to mention what the fighters cost, the sanctioning fees. There's a lot of expense involved. I mean, it's just astronomical that what these big fights cost. So even the big promoters and the big events need funding. So they go to the state governments, and that's why you see Kambosos Lomachenko fight in Perth. That's why you'll see a Horns or Uffa fight in Bendigo. You know, so this is what was the other one? Green Mundine in Adelaide. I mean, a lot of people scratch their head and go, "What the hell are they doing fights there for?" That's where they get the most money from. They shop the fights around, see what they can get, see what the response they get from those state governments, and just see what the best option is for them. A little bit different with someone like a Tim Tszyu. He would have, even though he's lost his last couple of fights, he would probably have every major city in the country all vying for his services. So No Limit could probably go in there and pretty much write their own ticket. But when it comes to someone like Jaya Pataya, who's strangely enough, or ironically enough, the number one fighter in this country, but even he's got his promotional firm has got to scrape and scrounge for funding. They would have done a write-up on the Gold Coast because he's a local. Well, he's from New South Wales, but he lives up there now. But Eddie was talking about the difficulty in the funding that they had for Paro and Jarvis, which I probably pretty much got nothing. And I think that was, where was that? That was in Brisbane, I think, wasn't it? I can't really remember. Where was that fight? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So he was talking about the difficulties in getting some money for that, which he said he basically got nothing. Then obviously they're looking forward to March to see what they can get. But he said the hardest thing is, he said most people he's spoken to here, it's a 9-month turnaround as far as getting some feedback from the governments. Because what actually happens is you've got, this is, I know I'm probably boring you here, but this is just from my experience with Dean Lonergan, who was, again, just the master at these negotiations. But you've got to make an appointment and with these state government people, and let me just tell you, a lot of them have got their heads up their asses. They don't know anything about boxing. They don't probably like boxing. They all think they're just so important because they've got this role, and you should bow down to them. It's really pretty sickening, to be honest, these people. And I deal with them in local councils and that sort of stuff. They are the scum of the earth. Let me just say that. But these government guys, they've got a level of importance. They know they've got the event literally in their hands, of whether it succeeds or doesn't, or whether it goes ahead or doesn't, and they know it, and they act accordingly, and they're smug little bastards, they really are. But so when I sat down with Dean, he was the master. He just catered to them all, and gave them compliments and really spoke the language they wanted to hear, and he put a great presentation forward. So when you finally get a meeting with them, you've got to be fully prepared, and you've got to have your full presentation ready to go. You've got to have projections of the tourism it's going to bring in, the dollars it's going to generate on TV. You've got to negotiate a marketing package for the particular place you're having it. So if so for instance, when it was in Bendigo, we had to have all these different little mini videos, and almost like a tourism campaign during your event. That's what, and I get it, by the way, because it's a business relationship, a partnership. They give you money, and they're buying tourism support from you and having people come in. And the strange thing is, a lot of people say it's about the gate. Nothing to do with the gate. They want, sorry, I'll take that back. It's to do with the gate, but they're not really stressed about the locals. They want people coming in from interstate, overseas. They want full exposure on your TV network, and it's a real art form, and you have to be prepared. And Dean was, when I went, because obviously with that Pacquiao Hearn fight, with the Brisbane thing, he had to be very, very well prepared. But and then you got to wait, and then they'll come back to you with questions, and they want this and they want that, and then they've got to talk to somebody, they've got to talk to somebody else. The wheel turns very, very slowly. And I think with the Horns or Uffa fight, it might have been a 4 or 5 month turnaround, which is a lot better than 9 months. I understand that, but it's still a lot when you're trying to plan an event, or even just get the ball rolling on an event. The fighters want to know if they're fighting. There's a lot of planning to go into it, so it's a very frustrating sort of process. I'm sure someone like maybe an Eddie Hearn might be a little bit different, because obviously I'm sure the state governments will be worded up about who he is, and a lot of them might even be boxing fans, who knows. So he probably goes in there with a little bit more ammunition, and I'm sure overseas, if he goes around England or something, it's a lot easier. But that's just the difficulties, and what he said is with this promotion, and going forward is going to be the major stumbling block. And a lot of people have said to me, why the long break between Paro and Jarvis to now. He said he was going to do all these fights per year, and he had the DAZN contract and all that sort of thing. And I think what he was sort of implying is that it was just too hard. He put the fight on. He's a busy guy, remember. He's off all over the world promoting these massive events. I don't think the Riyadh season thing was really big at that stage. He'd done the Joshua and Ruiz fights over there, but I'm not sure he'd done more than that. This is, what, 2.5 years ago, whatever it was. Now, of course, all the big events are over there. But yeah, I've got a feeling that he sort of implied that it was just too hard dealing with the whole thing, and he just went and did his own thing overseas, and obviously many other big events that he could do over there. So anyway, that's sort of the way we're going. But it was an interesting spin on also his plans for Jai going forward, and he's talked about Terramona, and he talked about Justice Huni and these sorts of guys. So he's really keen on getting his teeth stuck into the Australian scene, but I'm going to be interested to see what happens as far as will the Australian government shoot itself in the foot, or the Australian states and their events team shoot themselves in the foot and go, well, we're just going to make this too hard, and Eddie will just say, you know what, see you later, I'm going back to England, Saudi Arabia, the US, whatever. So let's hope that's not the case. But he has got a good man on the ground here, of course, in Mick Francis that he'll be working with. But on to some other news, and I did see that it's looking very, very likely the Errol Spence, Sebastian Fundora, Errol Spence fight is very, very close to being announced. I think they were targeting March 29th at the MGM Grand. So I don't know about you, I could not give a toss, could not care, and I can't believe that by the time they fight, it would have been a year for Sebastian Fundora between fights. He had that great win, of course, over Tim Tszyu. Now, Tim Tszyu, with that horrific cut, has fought in the meantime. Okay, it didn't go that well for him, but at least he was back in the ring. Sebastian Fundora hasn't had a fight announced almost a year later, and he's the champion. There's been talks about all these different fighters he was going to fight. The Spence fight's probably been, geez, what's it been? Well, straight after the fight, it was pretty much announced in the ring that they were going to fight next. Well, it's going to be a year in the making, and by the time they fight, apart from Fundora with the 12 months out, it's going to be, what, almost a year and a half for Errol Spence, and he's about to turn 35. He's been in some horrific, well, his last fight was a horrific beating, and of course he had the car crash, and he's had a few other issues as well. So I really couldn't care less, and I think if Sebastian Fundora was sort of fair income, he would do whatever he could to get away from PBC. To have him sit on the shelf for 12 months and just be talking about what's potentially going to happen, yeah, I'm not sure PBC are going to last in this business. Now, maybe the Al Heymans of the world, who's made so much money, maybe the hunger's not there anymore, and maybe we're starting to see that now, and they're being overtaken by numerous promoters. They were supposed to have that big year last year with the Amazon Prime. I hear rumours that might be on the rocks as well. So yeah, the PBC thing I don't know, but if I was Sebastian, is it Lukovic, whatever his manager's, not Sebastian, Lukovic, whatever his manager's name is, Samson Lukovic, Sebastian Fundora's manager, or promoter, whatever he is, I'd be trying to get him out of that, and maybe cross over and have talks with the Riyadh season crew. I don't know, maybe he's hooked in for X amount of years, I don't know, but all I'm seeing is that it's been a year, or will be a year in between fights, and he's just had that great defence, and even with the Spence fight, is it really going to get to the line, even though it's only got a two and a half month turnaround? Is Spence reliable to actually make it to the starting grid? I don't know, but I just think there's so many other good fights out there for Fundora. I'm not sure why he's bothering with Errol Spence. I just don't get it. So I understand that Errol Spence is a PBC fighter, by the way, and they keep it in-house. I get that, but geez, so many potential great fights for Sebastian Fundora, and he's going to fight Errol Spence. I don't know. There's always moving parts behind the scenes. I understand that, but I'm not excited by this fight at all. Another thing I saw as well was Vasily Lomachenko. Now, he beat George Kambosos for the vacant IBF lightweight title. When was it? May 2024. Now, we all know he's had the future up in the air, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he wanted until the start of the new year to make a decision and all this sort of thing. And he still hasn't made a decision, by the way, but the IBF have come out and said, well, if he does decide to fight, he's got until October the 8th to defend that belt. Now, hang on, isn't this the IBF that are so anal about, or they stand on their soapbox and pump the chest out about how great they are as far as keeping fighters to the mandatories and all the rest of it? Well, but if that does happen and he decides to fight again, that's 17 months in between winning the fight and actually having to defend it, or winning the title and having to defend it. That goes right against what I thought they stood for. Now, actually, on this, I actually had a good chat to Adam Hite, who's the IBF delegate, who was the IBF delegate for the Niika and Opataya fight. I was just sort of taking the piss with Adam. I just said, why did they strip Crawford pretty much 2 weeks after he won the belt? Well, and he sort of just tried to defend it. Well, we have mandatories and we have rules and we have regulations and this and that. And then I said, well, then why did you strip Canelo of the IBF belt for not fighting William Skull? Well, we have standards and we have this and we have that. We were just sort of taking the piss a little bit there, and I totally get it. And I've always thought the IBF were probably the best as far as holding champions to their obligations, but I'm not sure that makes sense. Now is it Abdullayev and Moratala will fight for the interim belt while all this is going on, and then he'll have to defend the belt against them by October the 8th. But again, that's 17 months between winning the belt and having to defend it. So I don't know, is it some rules for some and some rules for others? I don't know. I'm sure there's a reason behind it. I'm sure, almost positive, one of you out there will put the reason in the comments below. There's always someone that answers my queries. So I'm sure I'll look forward to that anyway. And one last thing, guys, George Foreman turned 76 today. What an absolute legend of the sport. Big George Foreman, and in my opinion, in the top sort of 4 or 5 heavyweights of all time. The fact he won the title back in 1973, lost it in 74 against Muhammad Ali, of course, and then 10 years later came back and won it for a second time at, what was he, 46? I think he was. He was 46 years of age. Just an amazing job, and just a genuinely lovely fella, and just a real ornament to the sport. So Big George Foreman, happy birthday to you, mate. So guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I know it's not the most exciting episode, but again, this time of year we're sort of grasping at straws a little bit, but just a few little things I've read online in the last couple of days. So guys, have a great Saturday, and we will catch you tomorrow.